This is Ms. Hightower's guide to successful writing strategies. Follow along with this video using these notes. They were sent to your inbox, or you can create a new document. Be sure your notes includes the 5 steps, key points, summary and thoughts for each. Go ahead and open a blank document, title it Successful Writing Strategies, Step 1, Planning the Essay. As I present each of the points, do not write the points exactly as I have them. Those are my notes. Write them according to the way you process and interpret. You want to pause the video at your own choosing to summarize key points and share your thoughts. When you are sharing your thoughts, share what did you hear in the presentation that you liked, didn't like, agree with, disagree with, something you plan to use, something you already do. It only has to be about one sentence. If you see here in the notes that there are 2 spots, then that means you need to pause section 1 2 times to write 2 different summaries and 2 different thoughts. Section 2, pause the video 2 times at your own choosing and write 2 summaries, 2 thoughts. Step 3, 1 summary, 1 thought. Step 4, 1 summary, 1 thought. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. You should have your notes ready to go. Successful writing strategies, planning the essay. The very first step in writing a paper is to plan it. Do not sit and start drafting. Plan your paper. To do that, look at the prompt, turn it into a question, insert your answer with a because clause. If the prompt asked, write an essay to explain why your mother is the best in the world, you would turn that into a question. Why is my mom the best in the world? My mother is the best in the world because, here's the because clause, this is your why, she is supportive. It's only one prong, supportive. Avoid 3 prongs, supportive, caring, and generous. You want to avoid 3 prongs because each prong needs to be well developed. You need at least 100 words or 4 to 6 sentences to defend each one of the pieces of evidence you support. So, supportive needs 3 pieces of evidence, 100 words each. That's 300 words. Caring would need 3 pieces of evidence, 100 words explanation, 100-word explanation. And generous would need 3 pieces of evidence, 100 words to explain each of those pieces of evidence. So that's 300, 600, 900. You would have written a 1,000-word paper in order for it to be successful. So for my class and for the FSA, all you have to do is focus on one prong. Let's do one why. Okay? So you have your one why. You're going to be successful on this essay because you will spend time developing your one why instead of trying to use 3 whys and they're not fully developed. Step 2 in planning the essay. So it's not really step 2, but we're still planning the essay. So after we write our prompt, now it's time to do the research, gather the evidence, find the sources that support your claim. If you are taking the FSA, this is the time you read their sources. Why? Because you're going to try to gather evidence to support your why. If you are writing a college paper, you go to the library, you open up, online college web sources to support your claim. This is the time to gather your evidence to support your claim. While you are planning, you can also create a chart. Chart your evidence. This is just a sample, okay? Body 1. So you already have your thesis. So now let's chart the evidence. What am I going to say what evidence am I going to use? What source will I use? So list all of that before you start drafting your paper. And remember, if you are writing an opposing view, If it's argumentative, you must have an opposing view. You want to show the reader you are unbiased. You might not agree with the topic, with the opposing view, but you want to show that you can respect their view, that they have a valid point. So the opposing view, you can use body 1 for the opposing view or body 4, but you must have evidence for the opposing view as well. Plan out your transitions. What transitions do you plan to use? Use this template that I sent to your inbox, They Say, I Say, and gather templates. Put them in your toolbox so that you know no matter what essay you write, you have skillful transitions you can implement. All right, this is a good time. If you have not done so, remember you stop the video at your own for jot your key points and then write a summary statement, your thoughts, summary statement, your thoughts. So make sure for everything that's presented in step 1, you segment it into 2 sections. Segmented it into 2 sections. Step 2, now it's time to draft the paper. Here are the 4 key points for step 4. In order to have a satisfactory essay, you need to acknowledge the prompt, whatever the writing assignment is, acknowledge the prompt. It has to be organized. It must be focused. And you have to jam out on the commentary. It needs to be well developed, okay? You need well developed commentary. It's all about your commentary. So those are the 4 key points. Let's look at each one of them. Paragraph 1. All you have to do in paragraph 1 on your draft is acknowledge the prompt. Strong thesis with your why. 1 point, not 3. Here's the twist. You will use 3 sources to support your 1 view. Make sure it is organized. Show the reader it's a paragraph because it's indented. How is it organized? You have an intro. Well, we just said paragraph 1 is the thesis. That's all you have to do for the intro to write a satisfactory, acceptable paper. It's not impressive. An impressive essay needs a better introduction than that. We'll address it in step 3. But for an acceptable paper that's passing, it can acknowledge the thesis, acknowledge the prompt for the paragraph only. Intro, it has a body. What's your body? Your body is where you discuss your evidence. You already have 3 sources, and for each one of those sources, you will tell what they say, what they mean, why they matter. And you have skillful transitions, not basic, first, second, third. Those are basic. When you use advanced transitions here, now that enhances your paper, that upgrades your paper, okay? And you can look throughout this entire document. There are all types of transitions that are hidden within the sentences. In your draft, you want to make sure your paper is focused. Absolutely no loosely related info. Do not get off topic. Stay on topic. What's the topic? Your thesis, that why clause, what you said you were going to argue. And look, don't be clunky with your quotes. Avoid plopping an entire sentence into your paper. That's the sign of a weak writer. It's too long. It fills up space. You should be talking. You should be commenting more than plopping down evidence. So avoid scooping up a quote and dropping it into your paper. Good writers embed quotes. They use short, powerful clips from the sentences. If you're writing whole sentences, that's weak. If you're embedding your quotes by using short clips, that's strong. Only use what you need from the sentence. You don't need all the words from the sentence. Make the majority of the paper your words, which leads us to our next point, the commentary. If your paper is well developed, if you show the reader you know how to take evidence and defend it, you will win every time. It's your job when you bring the evidence in, when you introduce, every time you introduce a piece of evidence, What does it say? Briefly summarize it. What does it mean? That means, what does it reveal to us about your topic? What does it show? What does it teach us? What does it highlight? That's interpretation. This is you showing your intelligence. An essay is an assignment to reveal how smart you are. Are you smart enough to interpret data? Can you tell what this data means? What does this data show? Evidence. You now have to also say, why does this evidence matter? What's the connection to the thesis? Why is it important? What is the overall implication? How does it prove your position? Let's go back to our planning. Suggestion: one sentence for your summary, two sentences to explain what your quote shows. You may have to dig for this. Talk. It's your commentary. You are supposed to talk. It is not supposed to be about your evidence. You talk. Then you can use two sentences for the connection for your thesis. Okay? So that's how you'll end up with about 100 words for each paragraph. Look at that. That's well written. Okay? So now we have, that's you. You are responsible to explain your thinking. You're responsible to explain how the evidence proves your claim. You cannot expect the reader to make the connection for you. Stay focused. What does this evidence say? What does this evidence mean? And why is this evidence important? That is your job to do that. And this is where you win where you win essays. This is how you win on the essays. Okay? Your job is to show your intelligence. You want to say something. You can't summarize your paper. You just can't summarize the sources, regurgitate the sources. That's not intelligence. Strong writers insert their own thoughts. So consider the audience. Show who's your audience. For me, I'm your English teacher. So you would consider me being your teacher, your professor. We read hundreds of papers. How are you going to stand out? You want to keep that in mind. You want to make sure you have more commentary and short quotes. Say something new, meaningful, offer insight, join the conversation. Transitions, use skillful transitions, not basic. First, second, third. You've been doing that since you started school in third grade and seventh grade. Upgrade your transitions. Remember, stop and take. You should be writing the key points, and you should have chosen 2 times to stop to write summaries and your thoughts. All right, part 3. We're almost done. Strengthen the draft. You've written the paper. If you do everything it says to do for step 2, drafting the paper, you will always have an acceptable score. It won't be a high grade, but it's acceptable. You've written a solid paper. So now, you're like, Miss Hightower, we have this one sentence conclusion, this one sentence thesis, the intro, that's unacceptable. It is if you want a top score. So that's why we're going to strengthen the draft. Here is a model. All right, first, the key points for your notes. Key points. An intro, if you want to upgrade your intro, it needs to have a hook, a link, and we've already written the thesis. Okay, so the key points, a powerful introduction needs a hook, link, and a thesis. And we already wrote the thesis in our planning. How else can we strengthen the draft? We strengthen the draft with a thoughtful conclusion. A thoughtful conclusion, you avoid any closing words. In conclusion, all in all, to sum it up, no closing words. It's an insult to the reader. The reader sees you're at the end of your paper anyway. Immediately return to the opening story, paraphrase your thesis, and address the so what. So let's look at this model. Write an essay explaining the importance of getting to know people before forming an opinion about them. And this model is included on your notes, so you can follow along on your notes. This is the teacher's model. It is important to get to know people before forming an opinion about them. Here's the because clause with my why, because it enhances an authentic connection. All right, so now let's take a look at this Hook. You have to hook the reader. If you want to write a powerful introduction, you got to have a hook. I know many of your teachers have told you, use a statistic, use a question, a startling statement. Let me tell you what we all have in common as humans. We all love stories. Those of you who are gamers, games include stories. Those of you who like reality shows, those are stories. Your parents watch the news filled with stories. Some of you binge watch Netflix, stories. Movies are stories. So if you want to make sure you have a hit with the reader every time, use a story. All human beings love stories. As soon as babies are born, parents put those babies in their arms and read them stories. So if you use a story for your hook, every time you'll win. Let's take a look at this model. After Larry, remember, we're working on this thesis. It is important to get to know people before forming an opinion. So the story has to match that. Your story has to be connected to the topic. After Larry missed 3 classes in a row, Miss Hightower decided to text his mother to alert her of his absences. Larry is not doing too well recovering from the death of his friend, his mother replied. How shocking, Miss Hightower. How shocking. Miss Hightower had no idea her student could not focus on classwork because he was experiencing grief. She assumed his apathy indicated he did not care about school and he needed better study habits. Now, here's the link. Okay, well, this isn't creative writing. We're not just writing a story. It's an essay. It's formal. We're in an English class or a psychology class. So you need a link. This is your bridge. You already wrote the thesis in the planning, remember. So now you're just connecting the story to the thesis. This is the sentence that introduces the topic. Link. You need a link sentence. Like this teacher, many people arrive at false conclusions about others before knowing who they are. And then there's the thesis. We already wrote it. That's powerful. That's a winning introduction every time. Now let's look at the conclusion. So avoid, in conclusion, all in all, sum it up. Why? First of all, it insults the reader. She sees you're at the end of your paper. You don't have to tell her you're at the end. The best thing you can do is simply open the conclusion by returning to your intro. How did you open the paper? It's the same way you open your conclusion. Works like a charm every time. Here we go. After Miss Hightower learned of Larry's grief, she met with him twice a week in one-on-one tutorials. As a result, his grades improved and he attended class more frequently. Their connection was strengthened as a result of the teacher's understanding of the behind-the-scenes matters her student faced. Now, you paraphrase. Why? Because you're advanced. You're in high school. You paraphrase the thesis. Do not restate it like you did in 7th grade. Don't just rewrite it the same way. Say it in a more sophisticated way. Knowing someone before forming an opinion about them makes a difference in the quality of the connection. And most importantly, you address the so what. What's the world impact? Speak in future tense. Aristotle said it works well for arguments. What's the so what? Address the big idea, the who cares. Let your reader know how they will be impacted by this topic. If more citizens take the time to seek to understand rather than to arrive at false conclusions, hate crimes will decrease and peace will overtake the world, enhancing the quality of life for all. That concludes part 3. Step 4, and remember, pause the video. When you're watching this, pause the video and write your notes for that section. Step 4, revise. So to revise, this is where you are adding the finishing touches. How can you add semicolons? Semicolons are advanced punctuation structures. If you know how to use colons, add those too. Do you have any ly words in the paper? Remove ly words. They weaken the paper. If I said Marissa ran quickly across the street, I can strengthen that by saying Marissa sprinted across the street. Insert complex sentences. Go back to revise. See if you can add, although Marissa sprinted across the street, comma, she was still late for her appointment. She arrived late for her appointment. Very, stuff, thing. Get rid of those words. They're weak. Add details instead. I'm very hungry. No, you're starving. There are better words for very. It's very important. That's critical. It's urgent. Stuff. Your reader can't see what stuff is. Thing. What is you have to create pictures and details for your reader. Use skillful transitions as I showed you on the template. Avoid the basic first, second, third. That's elementary. Middle school is not advanced or sophisticated. Use skillful transitions and eliminate those be verbs: be, am, is, are, was, were, being, been. You got to take the time to do this. Revision is work. You've written the paper. We're talking, this is for those of you who want top scores. I've already led you to the way of writing a successful paper. This is if you want a top score. Lisa was hungry after she ate a snack. Was. Oh no, you want to eliminate that. How can I say the same without using the be verb? Starving after her snack, Lisa raided the pantry for more food. You see, it wasn't just striking out the be verb and adding a word there, it's rewriting the whole structure. All right, remember, pause the video here after step 4 and make sure you've jotted the key points and you wrote your summary and your thoughts. And when you were sharing your thoughts throughout the notes, what do you agree with that you heard? What do you disagree with? What did you like? What do you not like? And finally, the finishing touches of your paper. Reread it. Never give anyone your paper without reading over it. Edit for spelling and conventions. And ladies and gentlemen, that's success. That's a top paper all the way through a PhD. It will get you a successful grade every time. Okay? So these are your notes. You will be uploading this by the end of class Friday, along with the other tasks you are to do on the assignment sheet.